Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the interview I had with David Lin. We really didn't have an intro for this. We kind of just went at it. We didn't really preface the beginning of the interview or anything, and this is acting as sort of a buffer for that, as well as the knowledge that this original interview was about 3 hours long, unedited, and a lot of that, almost all of it, was just me rambling about nonsense and things only tangentially related to the subject of interviewing David, and bless him for being so patient with me for that reason. I'm still new to the interview process. I'm still learning how to pace myself and where to talk, and that isn't really a second nature for me yet. But I just wanted to let you know that that is all edited out, and if you want to see that, there will be a full unedited version of this interview available on the Patreon page for those who are curious about my rantings and ramblings. But without further rambling here, let's get on to the video, shall we?
Yeah, have we begun, by the way? Is this
I just,
is this it?
whenever I do these, I kind of just like cut out a little bit of the stuff in the beginning, and then I just kind of let the interview go, and whatever stupid stuff we say, that's on record. I guess start as a basic topic would be like, how did you get to do what you did? Like mini biography, like of how you became interested in music, why you got into things, I guess would be a good starting place.
Yeah, actually hated music when I was a child,
Good start.
and yeah, a lot of it's the classic Asian parent thing where they make you
Got to be
learn
good at
the
piano or violin, etc.
violin or the
Yep,
piano. That's
always
right.
one of the two.
Yeah, yeah, it's the piano for me, and actually didn't really listen to music until I was in about high school, because all I had was my piano practice,
Mm.
and I just practiced the piano, and that lasted for many, many years. And eventually in high school, that's when I branched off and discovered things like pop music
Mm.
and started getting into orchestral composition. And that was kind of like a turning point for me where I realized, this is really interesting, and maybe this is what I want to do. And I got a D minus in biology, so being a doctor wasn't going to work out clearly.
Yeah.
And uh, and so yeah, then I went to study at the Berklee College of Music in Boston, and there I actually studied game audio. So I was kind of on that trajectory to work in games and sound and
Mm.
music. But then I had the opportunity when I finished school to do some touring in mainland China. And there were, a bunch of colleges that needed entertainment for their big events, like, their school anniversary
Hmm.
event. And so jumped on that opportunity, assembled a band, and yeah, just started touring there. And that kind of snowballed into a few recording contracts with some Chinese recording labels. And yeah, that kind of just became its own career there. And so I was playing a lot of shows throughout, it was 2016 to 2020.
That's more
That was
recent
kind
than
of
I would
the,
have thought, actually. Like,
yeah,
because
yeah,
it
it's,
just feels like, just knowing where you are now, it feels like all that maybe would have been happening closer to like 2010, I guess. So,
oh
like,
yeah, 2010, 2010, I was still in high school.
okay, so
So,
yeah, we're not far off in age then. I just got off that talk with Adam, and he's like, he made a
yeah,
pass of me being born in '96, and he was graduating
yeah.
high school around that time. So
Yeah, I remember
it's,
that.
yeah, so we got this kind of age gap, and it's like, yeah, we're not that far off, but it's like enough that you're like, oh God, am I that old? So it's kind of feel like, oh, that's right. I gotta like readjust my mindset that you're closer to me in age.
Yeah, yeah. So we're the similar age range, and yeah. So I guess it wasn't that long ago that I was doing that, the the artist, the performance thing, and COVID sort of changed things up quite a bit. the last show I played was New Year's Eve of 2019.
Hmm.
It was a kind of moment of, we heard whispers of a possible disease outbreak, and no one really knew
Man,
what it was gonna be.
that's wild. Just hearing that it was back in New Year's 2019 that you guys had whispers, and obviously over here on the other side of the world, we're all just like, yeah, nothing can go wrong. It's 2019. Let's bring in 2020 with no problems.
Yeah, yeah. I also thought nothing could go wrong because the plan was, yeah, maybe I'll leave. I was living in Beijing at the time, and I was thinking maybe I'll leave Beijing for 3 weeks back to the U.S. It'll be much safer from any
Whatever's about to
pandemic.
happen.
Yeah. But now it's been almost 3 years, more than 3 years. Yeah. So it's been that amount of time. The whole pandemic seemed like kind of a blur. The passage of
It
time
really did.
was weird
Yeah.
to me.
So you gave her the kind of mini biography of how you got into music, where you were. I kind of had a lead question adding on to what you were saying about like living and doing music in China for a while. How did that happen? Like going from Berkeley, and did you just like go home to visit family and start doing music there, or is your family like US based and you decided just to take a shot and go over just to see what would happen? Like what led you to
Yeah.
get to China?
Yeah, I think the opportunity kind of presented itself, and I had friends and family based in Shanghai at the time who helped out a lot with, the logistics and setting up shows and getting in contact with people you need to contact to set up a tour.
Hmm.
And it was yeah, just a really random opportunity that I wasn't planning on, but it seemed like, it was a cool opportunity to YOLO.
You're like, gotta try it, right?
Yeah, I just want
Yeah.
to try it out. And, performing has always been a thing that has been interesting to me, just being able to connect with an audience
Hmm.
and, obviously play original music. And I think songwriting was also not a thing I thought I could do. Even during my time at Berkeley, I didn't really focus on any of that. It was mostly focused on like instrumental music, sound design, and so it didn't touch songwriting at all because
Hmm.
kind of like what you were mentioning at the start of this call, I kind of felt like, my English maybe isn't strong enough. I also don't know how to say things cleverly.
Yeah.
And
Wordplay is so huge in lyricism around the world that it's
yeah,
like, and especially if you like know one language and then you're trying to write in another one, it's like, how do I translate? Some things just don't translate well between
yeah.
languages. So you have to like think of really clever ways to work around those things.
Yeah, or you'll have to just adapt the meaning to kind of say something slightly different. And I remember uh, it was for this game called Tower of Fantasy. It's also a gacha game.
Hmm.
And it is, they had songs just like in Arknights, and they're released in Chinese. And we were asked to do an English version, write the lyrics, and record the
Hmm.
vocals. And there's a song called Chocolate that, I think taking the meaning from Chinese and kind of directly bending it into English, it would just be a little weird at
Yeah.
times. And so there's a lot of, kind of just get the general meaning, and
Right.
that's oftentimes or change it slightly.
Yeah, you have to like
That's often
capture the
the move.
intention, but not the exact lyrics, because direct translations are always a little weird.
Right. And some metaphors or idioms just don't exist
Mm.
in another language. So
There's
that's another challenge.
there are so many like like English versions of anime themes that like fans have made that it's like, did they use Google Translate for this? Like, 'cause- and then other people do a very good job at like restructuring those words. Like Jonathan Young does that very well, and he's always done that super accurately. And it's again another case of just capture the intent, not the actual lyrics. You got to restructure the whole feeling of a phrase sometimes to get it to work, and that can, I only imagine because I've never tried, but it's got to be a stressful thing to do sometimes. Like you're like, I have to make sure this is close, but nothing fits.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes when you take rhyming into consideration too, that becomes a challenge. It's kind of like building a puzzle, right? So sometimes one piece works with another, but then it's like this other element wouldn't quite work out. So yeah, lots of challenges there, but fun and rewarding when it hopefully works out.
Yeah. Have there ever been times where it doesn't work out and like you've been forced to like redo an entire section or chunks of lyrics?
I don't think that has happened recently. I think maybe earlier on,
Mm.
but with a lot of the stuff in the last few years, it's usually been minor adjustments.
I feel like,
Uh,
of course, time you get comfortable, you start learning
yeah,
what to and do not do.
yeah, yeah, and I think just knowing, especially with a lot of the Arknight stuff, kind of knowing like what the characters are about, doing that research beforehand,
Mm.
capturing their voice, oftentimes that really helps. And folks at Hypergryph are also pretty good at giving specific instructions on what the vibe should be and
Yeah.
direction there. So
Adam said they're super particular with their sound,
yeah.
vibe, feel. Like if you're off, they will tell you.
Yeah, and what's great is they are music fans, and they are, they really are passionate about different genres of music, and it definitely shows with the kind of stuff that they put out.
Mm.
It's inspiring to work with folks who are, very particular and kind of have a vision of what they
Vision,
want. Yeah,
vision is
it's
so
never
huge.
never
Like
ambiguous.
I think that's my biggest fear doing the stuff that I mentioned earlier, getting that animation worked on. Is like I have a vision, but I have no cool clue on how to like practically achieve said vision. Like I might be able to knock out a few storyboards here, but they're not going to be good. Like I think I would rather just bring on people who are better that know what they're doing to kind of guide me, because as a director in that seat, I don't really know what I want until somebody else is able to put it to paper, because I've got my own ideas and they might be close, but I know somebody else can do it better. And I think that's probably what the people you work with at Hypergryph have. Like, they're like, we have this idea, we have this concept. Can you get us close enough that we're happy with it? But if you're not, we will just say so. Like, you got like if you're not matching somewhere in the mind's eye with us, if you're not meshing in that vibe, we gotta say something because we don't want to put out something that's not what we wanted. And of course, that matters so much when things like music and their animations and such are a huge marketing piece. I think the same thing happens with like Riot Games, League of Legends, the Blizzard Overwatch stuff. Like they always have their cinematics that they have, and like all of these are so particular that if you don't have exactly what they need, they're like, nope, we got to do it again.
Right. Yeah. And the thing you were saying, it kind of, about having a team
Mm-hmm.
and people sharing their strengths. It seems like what is required for, bigger and bigger projects like with animation stuff. And even with the stuff you're doing on YouTube, right? It's
Mm.
like, it seems like eventually the route is could be to grow, get more people on board helping out and
Yeah.
like, scaling upward there. So very excited for you.
Yeah. We'll see how things go. That's always the worst part for me. Like, I want to push, get things done. I also know that, like, especially if I'm asking favors and not able to pay people, that makes it way harder to like justify the push of like, hey, it's been 3 months, maybe could you do the thing? it's I it's never intended to be like, do it now because I said so. But there's also a line where like, I know I'm asking a favor, but you've been sitting here not helping me out like you said you would. What's going on? Like, it feels so selfish to be that, but it's also like, I did ask and you said it was cool, so it's like, if not, just say so. I'll find someone else.
I know this is a position a lot of creators and artists are in earlier on,
Always
where pulling in a
earlier.
lot of favors,
Yeah.
right? And it's sometimes it's you feel bad not being able to pay people because there's no budget, you know.
Yeah.
There's a budget of -$2,
Yeah.
and
It's like, I can
and
get
so
you
it
a
takes
single
longer.
squirt of hand sanitizer.
Right. But in 3 months,
Yeah.
I can get you that squirt of hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
But with baby steps with the sponsorships, and
Right.
I think that'll
Those are
start
kind
snowballing.
yeah, it's like those are the hopes of like doing more, being able to achieve more. Like, I just bought a bunch of stuff for upgrading the room I'm in right now to be more soundproofed in order to make it not just possible to bring in an acoustic drum set and not have to record on electronics just because I like the dynamics of acoustics, but to be able to record more peacefully with other people in the house. This room isn't soundproofed at all. There's literal holes above my head. Like, there's literally a strip of drywall that wasn't sealed right. So like, I have to readdress stuff like that, and that's money. But I'm willing to put it in and get it done. It's just money, time, and
Yeah.
scaling that up to doing more projects, and of course paying people to actually spend their time and help me out. Same way that a lot of bands start when they're doing, like, that's a good segue back into what you were doing while you were in China. Did you just do solo stuff, or were you like in a band? Were you hired to be a part of a group, or were you just like living out of the back of your parents' room and just and just hoping?
Yeah, it was a solo project, but during the first leg of the tour, I got humans to play in the band. So I had a drummer, a human drummer, and keyboardist, another vocalist, and bassist, and I was playing guitar. So that was the first iteration of the project, of the live performance, and it was mostly original music. Yeah, we were staying with family over there in Shanghai at the time. It was, I was like, a lot of us were sleeping on bunk beds for children. So
Yeah.
like the drummer, his legs were so long that it couldn't stay in the bed.
Yeah.
But classic touring band stories,
Yeah,
touring
the
band
usual,
vibes.
yeah. That
Yeah.
we don't have any money, we've got a hope and a dream. Oh,
Yeah,
I love how universal that experience is. Like, doesn't matter where you live on Earth. If you're a band, you're struggling. Like, that's it.
Yeah, until you grow but it's like you said, with your setup and your room, there's always more to add, and
Yeah.
the money you make just goes back into the operation.
Yeah, you've got to
So it's
start
like-
somewhere, but you can always give what you got a facelift, and a lot of facelifts sometimes are required to make things more
Yeah.
feasible.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And eventually the setup became down to just me and a keyboardist, so that it was, I think, just better logistically for flying places and driving places, not having to carry so many instruments. So that was kind of a more transition into more of an electronic pop thing. And so I think the no human drummer really made a big difference. I know you're a drummer,
Yeah.
and we love drummers, but just the logistics of travel
It sucks.
and needing to put the kick drum
Yeah.
in the car.
That's why there's such a stereotype, at least in the US, of like the drummer having that big crappy van that they got off their weird uncle for $50 that like it barely runs, but at least it can carry a drum set. It's It's like
Yeah, yeah.
that's like the whole joke there, because like if you don't and they don't have a house kit, what are you supposed to do? Then there's no drummer. It's worthless. So like that's a whole different struggle, the logistics of getting around. But so
Yeah.
your band then, was that the first iteration of what eventually became your like current uh project that you've got going on, the like Moose Light Kingdom
Yeah,
project?
so
Or
that was Moose Light
okay.
Kingdom. So that was the thing started 2016. Um yeah, yeah. So it kind of went through different kind of versions where there were 5 people touring, and then it became 2 people, um, and the more electronic thing. And in the creative process, though, it was mostly me starting the songs, and I was working with usually one other producer to create these songs. So it was, yeah, more of a solo project rather than every band member contributing like a
Mm.
Coldplay
Right.
situation.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that went on for, right, 2016 to 2020, 4 years. Yeah, I guess it wasn't that long. It was
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty good run for like an indie group. Like a lot of people start and stop within like a year or two max.
yeah, yeah, and I think we were gaining a lot of traction, getting onto a lot of big shows, like played on various TV shows were a big thing
Mm.
in China, like these big elaborate productions where some are competition shows. Those
Yeah.
are pretty common too, but they just have so many crazy sets that they would build for these shows, and we played on several of those, and that was pretty cool, just experiencing the grandiose nature of that setup, you
Yeah.
know?
That's something I've always like I mentioned earlier. I've never been like into the idea of being in a band or doing travel stuff. So I think it's just because that concept right there kind of scares me. Like just having to be on stage, having all these people to disappoint, that anxiety raises, and I'm like, I'd rather just do it in my bedroom, be happy here, because if I mess up, then nobody's here physically to laugh at me. You can write off YouTube comments and Twitch chat and be like, yeah, whatever. But God, if there's people in the room, it's like so the stakes are so high, and that stress has just always sat with me. Like I don't know if I ever want to do that. I think I'd be okay
Yeah.
once in a while, but it's not a goal for me.
Yeah, it can be scary, and I know folks are very like scared of that public performance and public speaking in
Hmm.
general. But I will say, I think oftentimes live performance is fun because things could go wrong, and
Yeah, it's like, that
in-
scares people like me, and then people like you were like, oh, but that's a good time to improv my way out of it. And I'm just like, what do you
yeah,
mean
yeah,
improv? Everything's ruined.
yeah. The fact that you don't know what could go wrong is the thing that gets people going, and
Mhm.
not that I like witnessing train wrecks, but there is a part of me that's like, ooh.
And it's like, yeah, some of those can be fun and played off very well, but that anxiety of it happening, like if I were to drop a stick mid performance, I'm going home. I like the rest of the band has to finish without me. I'm done for like a week minimum. I wouldn't be able to show my face.
Yeah, but what I learned is that, because these things, yeah, they're embarrassing, but like you will not die, and when you
Debatable.
realize that, oh, maybe you will implode
Yeah,
when you when,
there's an
when
internal
you drop
like,
your stick.
yeah, there's like an ego death that comes with it. You're just like, I can't. I'm done. Nothing matters anymore. Like,
Yeah, yeah, I feel you on that, though. I think maybe I've just experienced enough
yeah.
failures in these live settings where it's like life is so absurd, and I find it oftentimes funny. Of course, when you're doing certain things, you can't really. For example, there was this one time we were on this TV show, and we were doing just one take of the song, and that was going to be the take. And there was confetti and smoke machines, and it was the EDM banger that we were performing. And before the first chorus, a piece of confetti just flew straight down my throat. And
No.
like I had this moment of, am I gonna spit it out and make some weird noises on the microphone? So I didn't have much time to think, so I just committed and I just swallowed the whole thing, and I felt like it cut me all the way down my esophagus.
Like a giant paper cut. You start singing, coughing up blood. Like change genre to like death metal, like mid.
Yeah, so that I couldn't really make that moment my own because the show was going.
Yeah.
So I just swallowed it and just kept playing, and I don't think anyone noticed.
That level of commitment is something that's always like, it impresses me when people can drive like that and get it done. There's a infamous video, I don't remember what guitarist did this, but like mid solo, their main string that they were using broke, and they just started to do it on a different string, but like up a little bit to make it sound as close as they could. And somebody, like one of their techs, came out and changed the string while they were doing an extended solo so they could continue the song. That was sick. And I'm like, I don't know how people just like, yep, this is a possibility. Be on the side with the G string ready to go if something goes,
Right.
That's insane that is the level of skill and preparation and knowledge that people have of these situations. They're so ready. Everything has gone wrong at least once. And like you said, that's kind of part of it. You mess up enough that you learn how to move beyond those. But in cases of people like me, if I drop one stick, I'm done. Like, because I don't know what to do in that context. Do I get another stick? Is everyone else going to be fine while I grab my stick? Like,
yeah, they'll probably be fine as long as you are kind of comfortable with. Like, if you're visibly flustered, I think that's when the audience gets uncomfortable too.
I guess I've had those too. Just doing live streams of like, I've dropped my stick on live streams, of course, but I'm playing to songs that are pre-recorded so nobody's missing anything. And sometimes I'll be like, geez, like I'll drop a stick really spectacularly weird, like it'll ricochet off everything and smack me in the head. And I'm like, how did that even happen? And those you have to stop because it's like, oh God, I think I just got a concussion. But then there's also light ones where your stick just drops out of your hand and you just reach over, grab a new one, you keep going. It's just immediate. You don't think about it while it happens. But
and I think in the streaming space, it seems like it is much more, tolerant towards these little fluffles that occur on stream. And people often are really joyous because it can get monotonous when things aren't.
They're too perfect.
When everything is going right.
Right.
I think some performers get really good at playing off the moment, when they decide to kind of draw attention to the mistake they made, and oftentimes that makes for a endearing moment. And other times, you're like the person who broke the string on the guitar and is able to do the rest of the solo just on a different string higher up on the fret, and that's impressive too. It probably comes with just mastery over
I mean, this was
instrument.
definitely somebody who was like a legend in, I just don't remember their name, but they were definitely like legendary skill guitar. Like, they have a name, like they probably had a signature guitar, if not multiple levels of legend in that field. And it's like, cool, clearly they know what they're doing. But it's also like, I've seen goofier videos, when I thought of a few seconds ago there, of a drummer dropping both of his sticks mid-song, and he started using his hands because he didn't have any other sticks, and he's like standing up, like slapping the crash cymbal, just trying to finish. There's only a few measures left, but it's like, that's funny, and like people are laughing. Like, you see the bassist turn around, just like flipping him off, like, you're an idiot. Like, what do you think you're doing, bro? Like, you see him like goofing around with it, and that like camaraderie of being in a band is a whole other thing there. And like, if you're playing with friends, they'll make the best of it. Turning more into the Arknights stuff, I have a list of songs that you've worked on for those watching who may not know as much about specifics on who does what song. So you worked on Stan Chen, Cold Call, Beautiful and Lovely, Ensheath, Ash Ring are the ones that I have listed. You've done more than that, but you've worked on those ones. I also have Fake Waves with a question mark because I know you worked on it, but what was
Right.
that? What happened?
Yeah, so that was one of the contingency contract songs, right? And I think the direction that the song was supposed to go was, I forgot what the reference track was, but it was clearly a kind of a K-pop
Hmm.
kind of direction. And we've done similar songs, Beautiful and Lovely, that
Yeah.
was also kind of a K-pop
Yeah, that one
vibe.
was so much like, yeah, 100% K-pop vibe on that one. And I was like, "Oh yeah, this is nice." I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, and I think that the challenge with that is, when we have one vocalist versus, a K-pop band, usually many vocalists,
Yeah.
it is
A lot more flexibility on like what you can do with those voices.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So it's like oftentimes a person will have one verse and then, or even within a verse, people are trading lines,
Yeah.
and that kind of gets it to be much more lively, kind of like almost like a conversation between
Yeah. And
different
you
band
get
members.
those wide dynamics similar to any like instrument. It has dynamics when you're playing it and the voice is no different. But when you have multiple voices, then it's like I've got so many options.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
works best for whose voice? Like who's a better rapper than other people? Like that's always the thing with K-pop groups is like you have the people who are specialists, like who are just slightly better at certain things, the dancer, the rapper, the lead
Right, right.
vocalist, blah blah blah.
Yeah, yeah. And so you saw the concert, right?
Yeah.
The most recent concert. And I know they did the Fake Wave song on there too. And that performance I actually quite enjoyed, just because it was like the vision of what they were going for with, I believe they had 3 vocalists in there, and like that kind of playing off of each other. Of course they were dancing too, so it's like a hard performance.
Yeah.
And so I quite liked that version of it. And I think in the studio we just had one vocalist, and so that was super challenging in creating this sound that was supposed to be, this K-pop,
Right.
very cool, very hip rapping parts, and then there's the big chorus parts, and it was, yeah, just conveying that with one person, so tough.
Yeah.
And I wasn't the vocal; it was someone that we worked with who is remote. So this guy Skylar Funk, I believe, is
What
his
is that?
name.
The actual last name? That's sick.
I think so.
That's got to be a stage name. That's too perfect.
I recall his Instagram page. His picture was of his driver's license.
And it was. That's great.
Yeah.
But yeah. So the fake waves thing I only really brought up because I know people would be like, "Oh, what if he doesn't talk about it?" Because it's the meme song, like it's the one that everyone kind
Yeah.
of picks on. The Angry Birds memes are huge. So
Yeah, I've seen all the memes of
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I think that's one of those situations where, yeah, it's there are some similarities there, but
I personally didn't
it's
really
not.
like hear it until people mentioned it, and I was like, I guess. But I don't know, it just didn't land the same way for me, I guess. Like when I heard it, I didn't hear Angry Birds when I heard it. Because I heard it before I knew what that meme was. And my initial reaction was just kind of like, this isn't that bad. Like, what are people making jokes about it all the time for?
Yeah. I think it's like 3 measures of similarities
Yeah.
where, the phrasing of the first do-do-do-do,
Yeah.
do-do-do-do, and then
And-
do-do-do-do-do-do, right.
Yeah.
So obviously very iconic melody,
Right.
Angry Birds. But I don't think anyone was thinking that in the process
Yeah,
of
I wouldn't have.
creating it.
I would.
But the people are really good at spotting things on the
Yeah.
internet and kind
And then
of
you gotta-
when the memes are good.
Yeah, you got to take it
they-
in stride too. Like there is no point in trying to fight the memes when they happen. You just have to
Right,
roll
right,
with
right.
them and be like, okay, yeah, I hear it, I get it, haha, yuck it up, whatever. But at the end of the day, you're still the one that got paid, baby. Like that's
Yeah, and it's also interesting seeing how different markets perceive the song, as I don't know if people are thinking that in the Chinese market.
yeah.
think it's
Like
maybe
I
the
said
Western-
earlier with me reading through the Billy comments that I've done. It's a lot of people take these songs in ways I never thought, or like think about them in different
Yeah.
ways, and they'll say that in comments, like their own opinions and how they process these compared to my own. And I'm like, that's actually a really interesting way to see it. Like, I like these different takes on things because nobody's from the same walk of life. You can be from similar places, but nobody's lived the same life and had the same experiences. So everyone's gonna have a little bit of something different, and I always find that cool. So
Yeah, and I do appreciate that you actually go in and read all the comments,
Yeah.
on your videos and
I don't
on
miss
other
a single.
sites.
I literally don't miss a single comment on my own channel. Like if it's on the YouTube side, I've read every single comment that goes through. There's not too many in general, like compared to a lot of channels, but I don't like to avoid them like some people do. It sucks when you get people who are being negative. Like the biggest one was I did a reaction to a Honkai live stream,
Yeah.
one of their concerts. That I was unhinged during that entire segment. My brain was going haywire. My ADHD was going nuts. I was saying really dumb things and being like really like hyper fixated on being picky for no good reason, but it was meant to be all in good fun, and people didn't take it that way. So they took like me calling people like I brought up one of the singers had like very sharp shoulder pads in her dress, and I'm like, what is this, the 1970s? Jesus, or fashion? And like, of course I'm not serious, but not everyone processes sarcasm the same way I do, or like thought about it as a joke. And I understand that. So like I don't hold ill will to those comments, but yeah, everyone's got a little bit of a different way to process how things happen, and reading those, good and bad, can be beneficial. I realized that people didn't like how that video went, so I was like, okay, I'll make sure I don't do that again. You got to learn and move on. Realize when you kind of made a mistake, and even though people in the stream were okay with it when it was live, that's not going to be a universal opinion, Everyone's going to have a little bit of
Right.
something.
Yeah, it can't appeal to everyone.
Yeah.
Great that you're learning from, you take these things into consideration and, learn from them and adapt if necessary.
Right.
Or continue talking about the shoulder pads. That's another option too.
Just keep being a jerk all the time. I mean, a lot of that specific one was me poking at the way that they implemented AR, and like a lot of it was kind of rudimentary, and you could see a lot of seams and like broken graphic imagery. Just because it was new. Duh, they're gonna have a little bit of jank. Nobody, I wasn't faulting them for that at all. I was just kind of yucking it up because there's gonna be a little bit of jank. I couldn't do any better. Are you kidding me? Look at the room I'm in. Like I've got a pile of trash right there.
But it's like you can point things out, and
Yeah.
it's like you do analysis videos, and it's good to point out and discuss.
It was meant to be more tongue in cheek than anything. Like I wasn't saying I could do better. Duh. Like look at our budget difference. They have millions. I have whatever's in my back pocket right now. Like it's completely
The squirt of hand sanitizer. You have that.
a single roll of toilet paper. It was hundreds a few years ago. Trust me.
Yeah.
That's
But
just how
some
it
of
is.
the hardcore fans of any fandom, it's really hard to be a analyzer or reactor when you have something critical to say. Oftentimes people will unconditionally
Yeah, like
defend
can't say
the thing.
anything negative.
Right.
ever. And it's like, come on, everyone is going to make a little bit of a misstep. I mean, people see fake waves that way. And as unfortunate as that is, it's like you have how many other bangers under your belt? It's like, yeah, you might not like this one. This might not be your thing, but there's somebody out there who loves that song. I saw a bunch of comments on the Fake Waves upload of people just like, this is my favorite one. I just really like the way it feels. And it's like, that's cool. There's always a market, even if it's like kind of otherwise panned, like there's always a market for somebody to like it because not everyone's taste is the same. Like I like a little bit of every genre, and a lot of people hate most genres, and I'm like, I'm fine with that. Like country is always a huge one for that. People are like, I hate country.
Oh
and I'm
yeah,
like,
I know country's a polarizing one too.
There's
the
some
twang
good
for
country.
a lot of people. Yeah,
but there's some good country in my opinion. I don't like all of it, but you know, then there's people who will like live and die by country music. So there's always a market, even if like there seems to be a lot of people who are against something that means nothing in the grand scheme of things. There's always somebody who's going to enjoy it.
Yeah, and what you were saying, you know, definitely take into consideration what the overall community is thinking and listen to different opinions, of course, to learn.
By the way, how much time do you have? Because like we've been going for over an hour now.
I don't have any parties tonight.
Okay.
So we're
I don't have anything going on.
You don't have any parties tonight?
No, I never have anything going on. I did have another before getting into the questions. The final one I had was actually like the Hexany audio and like how'd you get in with that? Like how'd you get hired for that crew and work with that team? Like, is that just something that kind of happened by accident? Did you like apply to work with them, etc.? Like, how did that line up for you?
Yeah. So I was living in Las Vegas at the time, and I've known the audio director Richard for a long time. We went to school together actually, and we both studied game audio. And so I'd known him for 10 years, maybe. So I went on to do my touring in China and then came back to the US. And then, you know, every few years I check up on, you know, Richard's website, see how things are going. And I saw that, you know, they needed a person. And so I hit up Richard and, you know, they had to apply, of course, and, you know, had a few interviews with folks. And here I am.
That was a lot more straightforward than I thought.
So, yeah. So not a very exciting story, but that was 2 years ago.
One.
Yeah.
Having the connection with the director in college and just working through that, it's like connections are so important for things like that.
Yeah. So, though you know, it's it wasn't like at Disneyland where you get to have the fast pass where you just walk through the whole line.
Excuse me, I know the director. Let me through.
Right. So, you know, obviously you still need to be, I think a big thing is organization, and a lot of the tasks I do is kind of a lot of logistical things, you know, keeping things organized, which I find great joy in. And this is an operation that is very streamlined and very productive, and I quite like having this kind of order because, as you know, being in music, there's often chaos, or in a creative field when you have a million things going on. It's very chaotic, and just, you know, the fact that Hexany really emphasizes the orderliness of everything. Everything is documented. Things are, you know, there's an order of operations and a procedure for everything. So that really, I think, keeps us all sane, which I enjoy.
Order is got to be such a huge thing for so many reasons. And I mentioned my piles of trash lying around. Like, I mean, it's not actually trash, but feels like it. But it's like I'm one of those people that's got like piles, but I know everything that's in that pile and where that pile is. Don't move that pile. I know what's in it. Like,
yeah. Another way of organization is, you know, trash piles. You
Yeah,
kind of know
it's a
what's in
controlled
there.
chaos, you know,
Yeah.
like you got your pile of like random wires and you're like, I know that there is like 5 different sizes specifically down to the footage of HDMI cords in this one pile. You know, like it's that level of chaos and it's like, okay, but
Yeah.
you still know and everyone's got their own thing. So
Yeah, different mode of thinking for
yeah.
you know, for, knowing what is in your chaotic world and controlled chaos. I haven't heard that
Yeah.
term in a long time, but it reminds me of traffic in a lot of bigger Chinese cities, controlled chaos,
Mhm.
where it just doesn't make sense. But I've never seen a traffic accident in China. Well, I was in one. I didn't die, but I was in an Uber and someone T-boned our car, and it was amazing. It was like a action film where two drivers came out, looked at the damage, and my Uber driver, he was like, "Yeah, let's, pull over. I'll give you my information." And so when he got back in the car, he just pedals to the floor and just takes off to try to escape so he doesn't have to pay for damages, I guess.
Yeah.
So I was in a chase scene for about 20 minutes. He was just kind of zooming over speed bumps in neighborhoods just
That
to get away
ride
from this
better
guy.
have been free.
No, I paid for it too, and I was honestly impressed. I gave him 5 stars. Like, you got me
Okay,
back.
yeah.
I'm alive, and
Like-
at the end he was like, my apologies for the mild inconvenience. And I was like, wow, to have this kind of
It's kind of
The
a once
audacity.
in a lifetime, yeah.
yeah,
So-
so I
Fair.
controlled chaos.
Yeah. So Kasumatsu has 2 questions.
Okay.
How many instruments can you play, and can you show us some of the music sheets of the songs you've made if you have any?
Yeah. So primary instruments are voice, piano, and guitar. And piano was my first instrument. I used to play a little trumpet in orchestra. Yeah, those are the main ones. I play a little bass too when I was in high school, rock bands. And as for sheet music, it's all digital, so I don't have anything physical. So I usually just write out the lyrics and a bunch of ideas, and it's all very organized in a note document. And it's very unexciting because it's just the lyrics that you would find online.
Just the words, yeah. My
And sometimes there's chord symbols on there too, or like rhythm markings. But
Yeah.
not as exciting as an orchestral score.
my brother has shown me his like lyric document, and it's just
Yeah.
pages, like so many pages that apparently the Google Doc stopped tracking like auto fixes and like spelling
Right.
mistakes. It's like, man, that's a lot of lyrics.
Yeah. So I don't have all my stuff in one document. Everything is sort of in its individual,
Like per song.
per song. So I might have something to look at. It's like I have everything on a database, and let me check to see if this is all released stuff. Okay, let me do this. Again, this is going to be underwhelming. I feel like I'm going to, it's
And again, if there's anything
I-
that like ends up you can't be shown, just let me know.
okay.
I can blur it out in editing.
Yeah. So, all right, I'll show you this. I'll cover the part that you can't see with my thumb. So this is like a bunch of songs that I've worked on, and they're all in their individual. It's like you click into one of them, you see Beautiful, Love, and Lovely at the top, and there's Stenchen and A Cold Call. Oftentimes they'll have different. Now you see Fake Waves on there too.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's visible on the camera.
You can kind of make it out.
But it's all on a database, and I have the timelines of when I need to complete something, and so like just trying to keep it organized and not be chaotic,
Yeah.
like we mentioned. So I don't have, what's the term? Doom piles?
Yeah, you have musical doom
Yeah.
piles.
I don't have musical doom
I
piles.
feel like that's what my brother's document would be the equivalent of, just a huge document of all of his lyric ideas for all of his songs in one huge document.
Yeah, so check this out. So this one is for Ebenholz and let's see. So I have, these are the finalized lyrics, which is what you would see online. And then collapsed here is like all my songwriting ideas, which I won't expand. And then also the brief, which is like information that we would receive and like some character information that would be useful in the writing process of, so images sometimes for inspiration.
Right.
Yeah, it's all in there. Sorry, it's not that exciting.
No, that's what's cool about it, is seeing the way that different people in different groups handle those sorts of things, because everyone's a little bit different. So I think that's gonna make Kasu very happy just seeing that.
Oh,
like,
good.
If it
Yeah,
doesn't,
yeah.
then he's lame and smelly, and I can say that because
And
he's a
smelly.
Yeah, I can add that second part because he's a patron, and it's part of my perks for me to make fun of you.
Oh, good. I'm glad you have that perk.
I mean, yeah, you gotta have fun. It's like I treat all the people in my Patreon as like a family member, because they are to me. It's
And
like,
that's why you got to insult them.
Yeah.
Keep them grounded.
yeah, you gotta remind them where they belong. Stay
Yeah.
in your
Well,
lane.
one additional thing I will add is that, for my personal process, I often will kind of start with ideas or phrases or specific words, right? In the case of doing lyrics, and I will come up with this thing called a rhyming dictionary or rhyming worksheet, where I'll put in a bunch of words that seem relevant to the topic and then just try to come up with a list of words that rhyme with those things. And then in the writing process, you would then try to piece it together, like what could the word donut rhyme with? And,
Yeah. That's actually something that I think I initially was gonna ask or bring up, was ashring. The way
Yeah.
that you wrote the hook into the chorus for that one, I really liked the way that the lyrics like sat when that transition happened. Like how it was metered
Yeah.
out. It just felt very like natural. It didn't feel forced. It felt like it was 100% like, oh, that feels like it was purely designed in tandem with the production of the song. Like there was no gap there. It was just like, oh, it works so well.
Yeah, you said the chorus
Yeah.
The chorus is what you're talking about?
Yeah. Like just like obviously the rest of the song is still fantastic. It's just that one spot, how the lyrics transitioned in, I was like, that just sounds really nice. The rhythm is there, and of course, me being the rhythm guy, big shocker.
Yeah.
How things just stack and work in that way. I'm just like, okay, I like how that feels when things don't feel like they're stepping on each other's toes to force another part of the song to work. It just makes me giddy. that's the
Yeah, I'm
reason
glad
I
you like that
sort of
one.
thing.
Yeah, I enjoyed that one too. I know that's closer to like a pop, like an electronic pop thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, same process on that one too with the lyrics. Like the lyrics is I'll scream through punctured lungs to the beat of battle drums. Won't bite my stubborn tongue no more. Right. So I probably had it written together like what rhymes with lung.
Yeah.
And I thought of drum and tongue and
Then you
so,
just
like,
have to get like the point A to point B connecting with the sentence that
yeah.
makes sense.
Just kind of, yeah. Oftentimes that's a really fast way to write because there are finite words in English or in any language, and so there are only finite rhymes that you can rhyme, and of course there are rhymes that are not perfect rhymes, and you can get more, but there's still a limited amount of words that can rhyme with the thing you're trying to rhyme with. So just identifying that first and being able to just have a list of words that are kind of thematically cohesive, that kind of speeds up the process. And like you said, it's kind of like trying to thread them together once you have, once you like lung, drum, and tongue. It's like, how do we put it together?
Yeah, I feel that's got to be the most baffling part for lyricism to me is like, how do people get like the inspiration for certain lines? Because like obviously you're gonna have a lot of songs that are not as uh intensive in the thought process as others. Some will just come naturally. Some will be like, you have that one really good line that absolutely like
Yeah.
I have to include this, and then you have to like force it to kind of fit in there by working other lyrics around it. But it's
Yeah,
like then
yeah,
it sounds so good because that one line is so good, and you just know it's gonna be like
yeah.
the hook.
Yeah, I think oftentimes writers will have kind of a backlog of ideas that they think is cool. Maybe they'll just, for me, it's a document that is just a continuous page of cool ideas or concepts or lines.
Mm.
And sometimes it'll fit for a certain situation. You kind of grab it out of your, little archive and kind of put it there. And yeah, some things are still just waiting to be used. And yeah, sometimes you have a cool line and you just expand upon it and it's a banger.
That actually perfectly lines into the next set of questions. A lot of questions here from Bylov, just one guy. A lot of these things were already brought up with the prior topic, but we can kind of retouch on them as we go
Yeah.
through. All these, I'm just going to read them all off. It's a lot of hows. How did the process of making sentenced, specifically sentenced, look like? How
Mm.
does such a request look like? How did you come up with the lyrics for it? How do your sessions with the rest of the team look like? And how can you tell your song is going to be a banger?
Yeah, all good questions. So the all about sentence, right? And you've
Yeah.
reacted to that one.
Mhm.
And so this one, Obadiah Brown Beach did the composition of it. So our our request from Hypergryph was, they tell us about what character we're going to produce a song about. And in this case, Penance, there's some background information about her, and she is this judge character, right? Swings a
Mhm.
hammer, and the whole vibe is that she is like guilt is a big part of this character,
Yeah.
and kind of being in a society, a part of a system that does things that she disagrees with, and things that are it speaks about uh, morals and like judgment and the guilt that she has it
Yeah.
being in her role. And so knowing that, I think I again started by just thinking about things that are even though this song is about a very specific character who probably not a lot of people can relate to, because not a lot of us are judges
Yeah.
passing sentences to
Right.
people, right? But I try to think to personal experiences, and we've all felt guilty and we've all experienced these emotions before, and the specifics might not be the same, but like this is something that's quite universal, right? That's quite why I think country music, if you can just get past the twang of it, oftentimes those songs are just about everyday life, right?
Yeah.
They're very relatable.
Yeah.
Maybe you're instead of being in a truck or being on a front porch wearing boots, you're in a Tesla, in Santa Monica with your sandals.
Yeah.
But
But
setting
that,
are different,
yeah,
right?
that concept of being just like we're all working class to a degree, so like you can find relatability in those lyrics a lot of the time. I think that people just, like you said, can't get past the twang, and kind of, and they
Right.
don't think, I mean, a lot of the lyrics can be very shallow and just like very hyper
Yeah.
specific. Here's my truck, my tractor, my dog on my farm. It's like, okay, I get it. I don't live that life. But a lot of country songs are a lot more personal than that and get a little bit
Yeah.
more like deep on social commentaries that I think a lot of people do sleep on, similar to the relatability to guilt.
Yeah, exactly. So back to
Mhm.
sentence. Our process is usually we'll have, we have six composers here. So we'll have one of them, whoever does the style of music and is well versed in that. So they will create the music track first, actually. So we don't usually start with lyrics and vocal melody, which a lot of people do. And so we usually get the track, the vibe down, try to make sure that it kind of fits the aesthetic of
Yeah.
the character or
Get the
scene or
mood.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so get the mood down, and then I come in and write the lyrics and vocal melody on top of that. So I think what were some of the questions specifically? I'm forgetting.
Um, how'd you come up with the lyrics, which we already kind of talked
Uh,
about? How do your sessions with the rest of the team look like, which you were kind of touching on there?
So the lyrics, it was clear to me that, my in my rhyming dictionary, it's like I wanted to use words like bruises and diluted
Hmm.
and improve.
Yeah, some
And
more metaphorical things that you can kind of relate, but aren't like super on the nose.
yeah, so I think this one kind of it's not super metaphorical, but there are still some things that are, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of talk. I really like the line like I got lost and I let my morals get diluted, and to me that is
Hmm.
very potent, right? It's like
That feels like a
coming from a
blend of like m- uh it feels like a blend of being literal and metaphorical there. Just like how it starts feels metaphorical, but it ends very like on the nose literal. At least that's how I'm perceiving that line.
yeah, yeah, no, and it's I think often very helpful to go more literal and then kind of go back and forth
Hmm.
between more literal and more metaphorical. And yeah, the chorus I think was um, more on the nose, where talking about the gavel strike
Hmm.
and like talking about the guilt that she has. And a cool moment in here in the chorus is that, the hook of the song, the last line of the chorus is, I'm the one who will be sentenced today. It's like I wanted the word today to be the last word in the song, because like when you're hearing the phrase you will be sentenced to,
Yeah.
people usually are thinking to
Death.
death.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of a cool moment, kind of making that kind of
S-
making the expectation
Yeah.
go
Doing the
go one way and
subversion.
then
Yeah.
yeah.
I love those. Those
Yeah,
always been
so
fun.
really, this was a fun one to work on. And as for the process, yeah, we kind of go back and forth. It's collaborative between the folks here, the composer, and the vocalist. Usually, we work with someone who like has a voice that is kind of representative of the character.
Mhm.
And so in this case, Allie Armstrong, who we recorded remotely, so she did her own recording and sent us the files, and Obadiah Brown Beach very skillfully put it all together. And, he's really fantastic at, composition and mixing and just getting everything to sound really polished, and, very skilled in tons of different genres. And so always a joy to work with him on things. Um, and so yeah, my portion is usually just having to do with the vocal parts and the lyrics, and I usually will record a vocal demo of me singing it and then send that to the vocalist. And the composer would do the final mix and mastering after we receive the vocalist files. So yeah, pretty streamlined process here where it's almost like a factory
Yeah,
assembly
a
line.
well-oiled machine for sure.
Yeah, just like
It's like,
cranking.
compared to a lot of other people who would just be like, yeah, we just pass it around until somebody finishes it. It's like,
Yeah, no, it's very intentional with because everyone has a specific role that they do,
mm,
and so it's never ambiguous what we're supposed to be
yeah, or like
doing.
the persons whose hands it lands in at the very end of that line are exactly the people who hand it off to the boss, like that you just get you're done with the song when you go through everyone, they all have their piece, and it's back at the beginning of the line who's then the person to send it back out to, whoever bought the song basically.
Yeah, and Hypergryph would, they seem to have a lot of their team review the music because they really care about the music and they're really passionate about these characters and a lot of details, which I love too.
Yeah,
Really caring about just making the product as good as possible.
that
And yeah, go ahead.
as I was gonna say, that actually leads perfectly into the next question, which you were already kind of talking about. What's it like working with Hypergryph? Infinite Star is asking that one.
Yeah. Like we mentioned before, I really love that they are music fans, and they also seem to be history fans and like fans of various art forms. And I say history because it seems like a lot of the Arknights characters and countries are inspired by historical events.
Mhm.
And I think it's very cool that these things are being incorporated into a mobile tower defense game.
Yeah, it's like you would feel like it would just be more shallow than that, but they're like, no.
Yeah, and I love the depth of things, and
Yeah,
one could easily overlook, the story and the lore, and it's just kind of a deep rabbit hole you would dive down, trying to understand Arknights. And I've been learning a lot from looking into a lot of these characters and watching the anime and watching gameplay footage, playing the game myself, and going to events. I was at Anime Expo here in LA, and Hypergryph had a booth, and there were a bunch of Arknights fans, and it was cool to kind of hear their perspective and what they're into. So yeah, it's been really great working with Hypergryph, and they're definitely also very organized with what they're wanting, and they're, like you were saying earlier, the vision is often
mhm.
very, very strong, and so it is never really ambiguous. It's like never like, oh, what are we supposed to do? It's
Yeah.
always very, very defined, and so that
What-
kind of allows us to just crank out these pieces, and kind of make bangers that already have a good vision. And to
Yeah.
answer the previous question,
Yeah, like
it
how do you
was
tell if a
how do you know?
song? Yeah.
I feel like oftentimes you get lost in the sauce when you're making the thing and you're kind of in the trenches. I'm sure you experienced this making a video. It's like, oh, is this edit quite right? Is this
There's a
cover like,
lot of things that I cut out that I'm just like, that was really like, there are tangents I'll go on that I'm like, that was either really smart and I need to back it off because sometimes I know things are just not like, it's going to sound ridiculous because I'm putting too much detail in. And
yeah,
it makes sense to me, but I know not everyone else is going to be like, oh, yeah, I understand that. Because my own
yeah,
language, just like anyone else's, your own.
yeah.
But the second you say something really hyper specific to your own like personal language, everyone else could be like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, though there are some things that kind of go beyond your own lingo. Like and mannerisms. I do appreciate that you're always keeping the goodbye
Yeah.
at the end of it. you
And
know.
okay, your mic just cut out when you did that, like it does with every end of my video because of
Really?
they have the background like echo removals and stuff.
Ah.
Yeah, like
No,
it
but
just
it's recording on my end, so you'll
yeah.
get the full goodbye.
Yeah, but on Discord it does that, and on OBS I have noise gates set up, and
Oh, you do?
it thinks that it's like a vacuum cleaner or something. It's like, what is that
Yeah,
frequency?
It can't handle the frequency, man.
Yeah. So like recently I've had to like back away from my microphone at the end of videos. Like I'll be like, so like
Yeah, so you learned the miking technique of
Yeah.
doing that optimally. But you
Yeah.
know, to know if something is a banger, I think often really hard to say. It's easier when you have multiple people taking a look, right? So in this case, it's slightly easier to tell if something slaps when, you know, you're working with a composer. We also have an internal process where, you know, we get our lead composer to take a look, and, you know, we share ideas, and there is it's not just one person. Sometimes you can really start to question everything when you are working on something by yourself. So the more recent one, Beautiful and Lovely, you know, that I kind of knew was gonna be, you know, it was very apparent to me that, you know, the vocalist is really great on that one, Ava King, or Sophie Gold, she goes by sometimes, and, you know, Eric Castro, you know, cranks out tons of bangers, and so that one I think easier to tell that it slaps, and so
it's kind of, is it like you know the people you work with specifically, it like you sometimes will know who they are and you're like, okay, I work well with this person, we mesh well, our creative juices flow really well together, so I know it's going to be a banger. But then also it's just specifically the person I'm working with on this one song, like singers or like featured soloists if you have any, you just know that what they're doing is really good. And like when you get a recording
yeah.
back from them, you're like, oh yeah, this is it.
Exactly, yeah. So the vocalist I mentioned, like, she is just very incredible. So you pretty much know that it's gonna be really good and well performed. Yeah, like Eric Castro, he and I have worked on a lot of stuff together. And, you know, A Cold Call we mentioned earlier. That one I kind of knew was very banging too, because it's just like, it feels like it was a good tempo, and the vocalist, same vocalist on Stenchen, by the way, just amazing voice. And
Right.
it's like, I think when you have amazing people working on it, and also like people overseeing like folks at Hypergryph, and, you know, going through their approval process with their team, you know, it's like enough people have okayed it, it's probably gonna be
Yeah.
good.
Like it goes through enough hands that if
Yeah.
if all these people like it, then it must be good. Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't feel like I think about, you know, how great something is going to be, because oftentimes, you know, you're working on a lot of different tasks, right? And so it's like you send one thing out and then you're already thinking about the next thing, and so there is not a lot of time to dwell on it,
Yeah,
which is kind of nice.
You're not like constantly going, I am going to make this specific song a banger no matter what. Like that's not your goal. Your goal is to get a song done. But sometimes the stars align and you just know. I assume.
Perhaps. Yeah, I don't think anyone really knows the magic sauce to creating a hit or a banger.
Right. It's more
it's
just a game of chance, and sometimes those chances are high depending on who you're working with.
Yeah, and you know, your banger percentage goes higher and higher the more experience you get, right?
Yeah, I love that as a metric. My
yeah,
banger percentage.
My BP, you know. So I'm trying to increase my BP always.
Yeah.
So I think that's the journey we're all on.
Yeah. I like that one. Like that's that's a good way to justify like where a banger would be coming from. Uh,
Yeah, bangers only.
Last main question is from the person who asked the unhinged question to Adam about the toilets.
Yeah,
So I think they're just going to be the token unhinged question, com
right.
notive, or noise rather. Um, who's your Arknight's waifu or husband?
Oh, a good question.
Yeah.
Uh, hmm. A good question, because you know this style of art, like it doesn't really like I have a different relationship with it
Mm.
compared to some of these, anime fans
Mhm.
or, however they identify. Weeb is a word I hear a lot,
Yeah.
but I heard that's offensive. So,
I call myself a weeb, but I think it's
right,
it's in like the intent of it. Like some people
right,
use it as an insult. I see it more as
right.
like
I
might
think
as
it's
well just
endearing.
yeah, like you
Yeah,
need to own it, but there's
yeah.
also like a line. Like I may call myself a weeb. I'm not obsessed with Japan and Japanese culture.
You mean you don't
I
have a
yeah,
Amiya body pillow?
yeah, like I don't none of that. It's
Okay,
like I don't even collect figurines, like that's not my thing. But like
right,
there's lines between I'm a weeb, I casually enjoy stuff, but I do watch a lot of anime, and then people who are just unhinged. But you were
right,
saying art
right.
style and everything.
Yeah, so Arknight's waifu, I would say. Well, I like a few of them. I really like Penance. I'm biased
Yeah, I was
because
about to say the
I worked on
bias
the
coming.
song. I really like Holiek.
Yeah,
Her song is Dormant Craving. Also, I'm also biased there.
you're probably biased
And
on quite a few at this point. Like that's
yeah,
not fair.
and I also really like Franca. She's the one with the fox ears,
Oh
and
yeah,
this was before Beautiful and Lovely came out. She was part of that crew,
sure it was.
and yeah. So I would say those are my top three right now.
But you can't pick between them.
If I had to pick, I would say probably Penance.
Yeah, it's usually the
You know,
first one you list off is like your
right,
personal
right.
bias.
I kind of like her Italianness and how she's not overly bubbly, which I quite like.
Mm. You appreciate that the personality traits of somebody who's a little bit more put together.
Yeah, she's a
Because
little more sophisticated,
yeah,
it
whereas
seems.
like a lot of these characters are either like really energetic or like
Yeah.
like I'm not putting my dick in crazy. Like
Yeah, I wonder what the story of the Dormant Craving character, Holiak. I don't really know how to pronounce that
yeah, I think yours
that
pretty
name.
close from what people have said to me because I've asked the same question. It's interesting spelling.
Yeah, yeah. So I would be curious to, experience that story once that comes to global. I know she's the whole thing is that she's perceived as a really unhinged character.
But also like
And
there's probably a reason for it because
yeah, yeah, and
that's
and
one
the
of the
song, I know it's a different vibe. The song is like she's much more mellow, and it's
yeah
like a lot of these
eh,
characters have quite tragic
right,
songs, I
and
find.
that's a huge thing narratively is a relatable villain. Like if you can
Yeah,
humanize somebody who's traditionally perceived as crazy or going too far, that's big in a lot of media when you can justify their decisions and actions.
yeah.
You got to, because then otherwise they're just not a good character. Like you can't have somebody who's crazy just for the sake of being crazy. Haha, that's
Right,
funny.
right.
It's
It's
like
not interesting when someone
right.
just wants to be a bad person. Like, they're just evil because they're evil,
It can be played off fine in comedy, like Puss in Boots, Last Wish, that movie. The main villain in that is literally like as a joke. He has no redeemable qualities, but they bring that back. They're just like, you're just straight up evil. He's just like, yeah, that's just me. Like, and that's funny. But in like a
Yeah,
traditional narrative, when you're trying to give the villain or the perceived villain a chance to be like, why do they do this? You have to give them an out. You have to give them a backstory, a reason as to why they're making decisions like this, even if they're morally gray. That's that's a big thing.
Yeah, it's so important for, I think, villains to have, these motivation and these backstories that kind of tell you why they're doing certain things, and that makes you like empathize with them more.
Yeah.
Though I don't know if Hol Hayak is a villain in this next hour, because I think she's going to be a playable character. So, but maybe she is still villainous.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, who are your Arknights waifus?
I am terrible with names, mostly because I don't play the games, so I don't like retain them too well. I'll just send you a picture of it. That'll be easy.
Oh yeah, send me a photo.
I'm sure
I gotta
you'll know
see
once you
your,
see.
your
Yeah.
waifu.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do I see it? Oh, right here.
Yeah.
There we go. Though how do I? Oh, there we go. Oh yeah, I know this.
Yeah.
I've seen this character.
I
Yeah.
like her purely because of her song. Like that's.
Right.
I wouldn't call her my waifu.
Right, not your
but
waifu.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I like her. I like obviously I have a bias with Nightingale and Myrrh for obvious reasons. Like I learned a lot about them.
Yeah.
I think Texas is pretty cool. Just in general, Texas is pretty
Texas
sick.
is cool. Yeah, I know she was featured in the anime too.
Yeah.
And she has like some cool videos.
And
you reacted to Missy, like the Cantonese song.
Yeah.
I think she's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
cool too. Yeah,
Right.
I like her a lot too. Swire, I think, is
Yeah.
that character's name.
I also like, and I can't remember her name right now, and people are gonna get mad at me. She's like this chipmunk or squirrel girl that like talks really fast. Or she like raps. I forget. she's like a super
Yeah.
fast rapper.
I have a hard time remembering what
Yeah.
animals people are.
Right, because it's just like,
But-
oh, they've got animal ears. What else is new? Just kind of forget about it.
Yeah, but to what's the male equivalent of waifu? Like, is there
Yeah, there's husbando is kind of
husbando?
Yeah.
Husbando, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say for sure. What's his name? Nerl, the uncle, Nerl's uncle, Mlinar.
Yeah. A lot of people seem to like him.
Yeah, then that was sung by Obadiah Brown Beach himself. So
I have to look up what his name is. I don't know what his name is. Tequila.
Tequila.
I like Tequila
That's-
purely because he seems like he'd be cool to hang out with. I don't think I would call him like husbando.
Husbando?
Yeah, he's more just like the bro, just kind of
I
like
see.
somebody I would chill with. But I think I would have to agree with Nero's uncle being like the most husbando material out of the entire cast that I know of. It's like, yeah, you got some daddy vibes with that guy.
And also Executor, he's got that kind of cold, kind
Yeah.
of cool energy.
So I
Yeah.
like that was all of the comments. There was another one from Infinite Star, but we did basically answer that while talking about other stuff, so not really worth re-asking something that we've already gone over. Aside from that, that was all the subjects and topics I was going to talk to you about.
Cool.
I know we had our numerous fucking side tangents with my own thing, so this I'm not sure how many of those are going to fit to the final like public version of this, but I guess
The
people
patrons
might
will love it.
You have to go to Patreon to see the full 3 hours of it. God, there goes my
Yeah.
storage for the videos on Patreon. They have
But I
limited
think we
space
covered
there.
a lot of good things. Very
Yeah.
productive and enriching
Yeah.
topics.
Still
out
sorry
here.
about the random side tangents. Those always take
No,
a little
all
too
good,
long.
all good.
I will work on that, and I will get better in time.
Yeah, the 100th one you do will be. Oh, the lights just got dark on
That's
me.
when that's a good transition to just going, hey, okay, maybe it's time to be done then.
Yeah, I think this building is on a timer. Yeah, it's 9 p.m. here, so it's on
Oh.
a timer to save power, I guess.
Oh yeah, it's just like, okay,
I don't
beyond
know
this
why
point.
this one is still so bright,
Yeah,
but yeah,
we can use that as a transition to call it a night then. How perfect. So thank you
Yeah, man.
very
Hope you
much
get some good rest.
Yeah, and thank you very much for doing this and answering all the questions and humoring the silliness and antics in between.
Of course, of course. Yeah. So we'll be in touch,
Yeah.
and I'll hop into the Discord as I can.
Yeah. And I'll let you
enjoy
know
the
whenever this gets
banter.
done. This one's a long one. It might take me a week to edit this down. In
Yeah, no,
between.
all good, all good, all
Yeah.
good.
But
yeah,
yeah.
so take your time on that. But
Yeah.
yeah, well, stay in touch. Let me know if there's anything else I can help with.
Yeah, no problem. And thank you very much again. Have a
All
good
right.
night, man.
Goodbye.